Welcome. I see a large number of people joining us. This is fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Let's get started. And as people continue to join, they do. I know this is a very exciting topic for us today. This webinar and live session is organized by MPOWER. MPOWER is a leading provider of education financing and scholarships. We are built by international students for international students. My name is Mac Wallace. I am a senior director here in Leeds, and I lead financial products. My passion is building great financial products, which is what brought me to MPOWER nearly 4 years ago. And at MPOWER, I work on our forward-looking credit algorithm. And this is really the innovation that enables us to approve international students like you who are coming from around the world who want to study in the United States and Canada. And that's no loans without cosigner, without collateral, at competitive fixed interest rates. So before we dive into today's subject, we want to learn a little bit more about you. So we have a short poll, if you don't mind filling that out. Let's put that up. So tell us about yourself here in the poll. Seeing responses. This is great. Let's give it about 10 more seconds. So get your answers in. Great, I'm seeing lots of responses. So let's end the poll and see what they are for everyone to see. Let's see, we have a lot of people from Africa, it seems. 82% of people today are from Sub-Saharan Africa, but I see a South and Southeast Asia contingent, and even some people from East Asia and the Middle East and other geographies. Welcome everyone from around the world. In terms of which career field folks are interested in pursuing here, I see a very high percentage of people interested in business, so pursuing potentially an MBA or a related degree. I also see a lot of STEM related fields in engineering, manufacturing. I see agriculture and food, a smaller percentage, but still large. And then health science, technology, and a few others. What a wonderful variety of academic interests here. And then the fun question, if you could travel to the past or future, would you pick? And it seems we have a optimistic bunch here of people who want to travel to the future, perhaps see where the investment in the years to come in their academic degree might get them, and where that might take them and the doors that will open. That's really magical to see. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone here today. I am very excited to be joined by a few guests as we learn more about this visa and immigration journey to the United States and Canada. A short disclaimer, we are not immigration lawyers, we are experts. So when it comes down to specific questions, we may not be able to provide that one-on-one guidance, but can provide general advice on the journey and other things here today. We do have a Q&A, so you are able to chat questions that you have, and some of our chat moderators are able to answer those questions, and some of those questions will also be asked of our panelists. So feel free to use that feature here today. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our panelists and our guests today, starting with Nigel. Nigel, welcome. Please introduce yourself and a little bit about your journey as well.
Hello, Mac. Thank you so much for having me here. So just a quick introduction. My name is Nigel Nyejika, and I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm currently a Master's in Business Analytics student at George Washington University, where I've been since last year in fall, that is August 2022. My academic background actually is in business and in economics. I studied economics at an undergraduate and then transitioned to the US for my master's programs. And in my career journey, basically, it was in business consulting, and then I went into technology as an SAP consultant. Then from there, I then went on to build a business with my business partner in an education technology space. And, currently I'm here pursuing my graduate journey. And currently I'm also working with MPOWER, on a part-time basis as an ambassador, which is basically helping students like yourself navigate that transition that you're trying to do to pursue graduate education. So I think pretty much that's a very concise and quick introduction about myself. Really excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you. Ron, welcome to the webinar. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey Mike, glad to be here. So hey everyone, my name is Ronald and I'm currently a lead at the underwriting team at MPOWER. I've been working with the company now for around, I think, 6 years. And during that time, I've been through multiple roles in both credit analytics and underwriting. Prior to that, I was an international student myself in the US. I went and studied at Rochester Institute of Technology and I did a master's in finance. So like Max said in the beginning, people at MPOWER were former international students trying to make lives better for new international students who want to come and study in the US and Canada. So yeah, great to be here and I hope I can answer all your questions that you guys have today. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'd like to introduce our third guest today, Krutika. Welcome.
Hi, Mac. Thank you so much. My name is Krutika Albi. I work with Uniserv Education. I'm the head of US recruitment at Uniserv. I've been recruiting students to go to the US for the past 7 years now. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. Every student is different. Every profile is different. And with that said, with every student, I gain new experiences and I gain new knowledge. So thank you for having me today, and I'll do my best to share my knowledge with you all.
Thank you and welcome. As you can see, our range of panelists spread the student journey, some who have gone through it themselves or in the process of going through it, and then others who advise students going through it. So looking forward to today's discussion. First, I want to give the floor to Nigel. You're an international student at George Washington University here in DC. Can you describe your journey as an international student to arriving at George Washington?
Yes, I think my pursuit or my passion to be studying here actually started a very long time ago. I remember by the time I finished my undergraduate studies, I was pretty sure that, I want to get to, expand my academic qualifications. And, prior to that, I think mostly it was driven by the, passion to upskill because, given that I had studied for an economics degree and where the world is going now with data analytics, with business analytics and all this AI revolution that we have been seeing, I felt that, I wasn't really prepared in terms of the skills that I needed to succeed in my career. So that's when I started my applications to come here. And, it was just putting my luck out there, sending in applications, reaching out to a lot of people so that I can, get that opportunity to be here and expand my skills. So I think mostly being here, it was really coming from a position of passion. Like I wanted to be here. So then that's when, but the critical challenge though was, even though I had started receiving offers, I had not secured the right funding to use for my studies and had been trying different options like scholarships, etc., for me to transition here. And that's when I discovered MPOWER financing, which really helped me to, have the right funding to fund my my academic journey. But prior to that, it was also filled with a lot of challenges as well. Funding just one. I think other things that were really constraining me was, having the guidance on how I can best prepare myself as I'm transitioning from a different part of the world. Zimbabwe and the US are two completely different places. So, the great thing is during that journey, I managed to get most of the support that I needed because I was reaching out to a lot of people, those that were already here, others who were, friends, others, family who already based here were giving me insights into what it's like. So I think fundamentally, it was really about, identifying a dream, identifying my passion, understanding what I really need to do, and then putting effort, starting applications and being intentional, and then, reaching out to people until I managed to get in, got my funding, flew in here, and, I've never regretted the decision. It's been an exciting journey. Yeah.
I love so many of the things that you shared. It sounds like you really viewed an education in the US as an investment in yourself, and your career, and upskilling yourself and getting exposure to the latest in business analytics, and the related fields, and also identifying your dream. I mean, it sounds like you had a dream of coming to the United States from Zimbabwe, which I'm sure a lot of people in our audience today can connect with. As we saw in the poll, many people are here from Sub-Saharan Africa today. What advice do you have for students in our audience who are either international students now or want to be in the near future?
I mean, it's advice that I can give is be prepared as much as possible towards, as you prepare to get into grad school. I mean, number one, it's going to be a cultural change. So be prepared, reach out to as many people as you can. Then secondly, I understand that mostly people who are here, they want to get into graduate education. So I mean, doing thorough research into which university you like, and, clearly identifying the program that suits your goals. Because, for example, there are different schools that can have, the best or like the most number of students getting into a certain industry. For example, I can say, and this is just an example, the US is filled with incredible universities, hundreds and hundreds of them. But for example, universities that are best in New York may be the best ones for someone who wants to get into finance or Wall Street than the ones that, the other universities that take the most students into places like technology. So doing that thorough research into the university culture, you can use reports, you can use the websites, you can even reach out to alums who are available on LinkedIn. Because one advice that I can also give is LinkedIn is an incredible resource that helped me and that can help prospective students as well. You can just go there, reach out to someone who graduated at George Washington, at MIT, at Harvard, etc., so that they can give you insights on what it's like. And you can even reach out to even professionals who are already there in the industry. So reaching out to people, doing research, doing your homework is very, very important. And then finally, I think just understanding that, this is possible. It's not just a dream. I remember a couple of years ago, I was dreaming of being here. So for those who are a bit nervous to say, hey, will I get into this university? There's no university that a student cannot get into. Just put in your best effort, do that essay, prepare for that admissions interview, apply for those loans, apply for those scholarships. The issue is you can definitely get in. So I think those are some of the advices that I can give, prospective students who want to, come here.
Thank you for sharing your advice. Sounds like research is really important to that. Here at MPOWER, we support funding at about 450 universities in the US and Canada, and those are hand-selected and researched and vetted by us as some of the best best universities for international students. So one of our chat moderators might drop that into the chat for you to do more research as a part of your research process. I want to welcome Krutika and Ron into the conversation now to talk a little bit more specifically around visa and immigration. So Krutika, starting with you first, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Let's start with the most basic question, which is, what is a visa?
A visa is a document that you need to officially travel to a country. So in case of US now, you are looking at something called as an F1 visa, which is an extended duration of visa for your course of study in the US. So without this document, having an offer letter and having a loan is not going to help you if you don't have a visa. So this is something that you mandatorily need to get into the country.
Wonderful. And what are some of the requirements of the F1 visa specifically?
US visa is pretty simple, if I have to say it, because you get a chance to prove yourself. US visa means that you're going to go to an embassy physically in your nearby location and present yourself and let them know that you're a genuine student, right? So one of the major requirements that you as a student have to present, yes, your documentations are mandatory. You're having an offer letter, having a passport, having an I-20, having financial support letter. Yes, they all are mandatory things. But there is one thing that I always ask my students to focus on is your own self. How you are presenting yourself at the interview is something will make or break your dream. A few years ago, when I wanted to travel to the US and come down to visit some universities that I partner with, I went through the fear of the interview, and I know how it feels. I then realized that, what my students must go through in order to conquer the visa. And I know it's intimidating and it's nervous. You get nervous, but it's something that is doable. You're going to be asked a few questions and you have to just answer them very honestly. I don't think there is any other way than honesty in this visa interview. You have to present yourself the way you are. Yes, whatever your grades are, you'll present yourself with that. Whatever university I've gotten into, you'll present yourself with that. So I think along with the documentations, your own personality, your own presentation about yourself, and your answers to the questions that they ask you is something is very, very important for the US visa.
That's great. So let's break that down into two parts. It sounds like there's preparation for the interview, and then there's the interview itself. So let's focus first on the preparation. One of the things that I know students need is proof of funding. How would a student work on that as part of their preparation first?
A proof of funding comes in picture when you have gotten an admission or you are seeking an admission to a university. So what a university wants you to prove is that you have a source of funding, which is sufficient enough, or which is fulfilling the need of at least the first year of your study and your living expenses. There are various sources of fundings that one can opt for. MPOWER is one of them. MPOWER loan is one of them. So I feel that the sources of funding is something that an individual decides. I mean, even if you have personal fundings, but now I meet a lot of students every day and they tell me, yeah, my parents can support me, but I don't want to take their support. I want to do something on my own. So I'm like, okay, yeah, and they are like master students. So they are maybe capable. They have earned, they have saved, and then now they want to take up a loan, so they feel capable of doing that. And yeah, I definitely encourage them to have different sources of funding, whatever they feel comfortable with. And loans is, I over the years, I've seen, especially my time when I was working in India, I've seen 90% of the people going for education loans. And MPOWER was one of the biggest markets in India, still is. And slowly we have started seeing the same culture now. Now that I'm based in Kenya, we have started seeing that culture here, that people are more opting towards going for the loan factor, because they have now realized that, yeah, maybe this is the eighth way to fulfill our dreams. So yes.
That's amazing. And I wasn't aware that it was such a high percentage. You said 90% have some form of financing associated with their proof of funds.
Yes.
That's great to hear. Ron, let's pull you in here as well. how from an MPOWER standpoint, how do we support students in demonstration of proof of funds?
Yeah, so we support all students by once you get approved for a loan, we issue you guys a support letter. So when you go to the embassy or the consulate or wherever your interview is, you can actually show them that letter, and that should give them a lot of confidence that you actually have the loan from our company.
Excellent. Krutika, back to you. How else might a student prepare for the visa interview? Proof of funding, having that visa support letter from MPOWER is one key part of it. What are the other components of preparation?
As I was mentioning, the other major components of preparations are that you need to be presentable yourself. I tell my students sometimes that the way you dress is the way they are going to take you to the way they are going to entertain you at the interview session. So if you're going to be dressed very casually and you're going to go up in your pajamas, they probably won't take you seriously, or they may ask you some questions which may just rat you out there. So one of the major things that I tell my students is be very presentable, dress very formally, know the tone of your talk, because it's not that you're talking to a friend, you're talking to a professional there. So yeah, this generation, the Gen Zs, have a different way of talking, and they say, I'm gonna go and study. But no, you can't use that tone at the interview session. You have to be more polite and more professional, and you have to say that, yes, I'm going to study to the US. So presenting yourself is one of the major components that is majorly looked at. And of course, apart from that, which school you have gotten into, what program you're going to study. Do you know anything about your program? Like if you're going to study computer science, why are you going to study computer science? Do you know anything about computer science? Is there a background that you have to it? Have you studied previously in the sector of computer science, or you've worked in computer science? Computer science has various dimensions like artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. So you need to know what you're going to specialize into. Yes, and if you're going to study, let's say you're studying artificial intelligence, then what under artificial intelligence is what interests you? What are your core credits? What are you going to specialize in? And this is not something that I'm making it up. These are the questions which are asked by the interviewer to the students to understand what they are going to study. And this makes them feel that, yes, the student who is going to study is they actually know what they're going to study, not just that they woke up one day and they decided, yes, I'm going to go and study in the US. Yeah. So I think this is something, your research-based knowledge, as Nigel was mentioning in the beginning, your research and your confidence only comes with the research, because you have the knowledge. So I think if confidence is the key to confidence is research and knowledge.
I love that. And I'm seeing head nods from Nigel, who went through this process most recently. Yeah. So something that was alluded to, though, let's dive into a little bit more specifically, which is the I-20, which is a US specific requirement. What is an I-20, and how does a student secure that as a part of their visa application?
Yeah. An I-20 is a document that a school issues when they are offering an admission to you, or rather when they are confirming that you are enrolled as an international student in their university. It is also known as a certificate of eligibility, which is given to the non-immigrant students. So when you're applying for a student visa, know that your category of visa falls under the non-immigrant category. So this certificate of eligibility means that you've been granted an access to apply for a non-immigrant visa. How is this document used? This is the only document that you need to start applying for your visa, because it has a unique ID that is unique to every student, and which is given by the Homeland Security of the US, which is the Service ID. So that Service ID is the one which helps you apply for your student visa. And then when you are in the US, basically, this Service ID is the one that goes along to your process, because that's the one that has been given to you from the very beginning. So that is one of the things that the I-20 certificate generally has an importance for. Schools have the I-20 that is issued by the school once you have been accepted in the program. So it's not like when you've applied to the school, the first step is that you get the I-20. The I-20 is actually the last step. So the first thing that you get is an offer letter, maybe conditional or unconditional. And then after that, when you finalize on the university and then you tell them that, yes, I'm going to attend this university, is when they give you the I-20. They are the primary, this I-20 document is only given by the primary university that you're going to attend. So you cannot you can have multiple I-20s, but you cannot file your visa on multiple I-20s. You'll have to choose or narrow it down to one school before you actually apply for the visas.
Wow, that's very
Yeah.
informative.
Yeah.
Ron, turning it over to you in terms of marrying the financing portion to that journey. At what point should a student apply and get an MPOWER visa support letter as it relates to the I-20 and their visa interview?
Yeah, so the way it kind of works is the earlier you apply for a loan, so when you actually need the I-20, you'll have all the documents that you kind of need to submit to your school. So you can apply for an MPOWER loan as soon as you get your admission letter, and you'll get your documents from us, like the support letter. And once you have that support letter, you can then send it to the school and get your I-20. So the correct answer for this question would be as soon as you have your admission letter, that's the right time to start applying for a loan and like start getting everything done.
Exactly. And once you're approved conditional on receipt of your I-20, we issue a visa support letter for you. And that visa support letter, it displays the maximum amount of loan funding that you qualify for. So we fund up to $100,000 for your full program cost. And your support letter will specify how much in total program financing you qualify for. And it's applicable for students interested in programs in both the United States and Canada. The I-20 is a US specific requirement. Maybe we can speak a little bit more to the study permit in Canada. Ron, there are some differences between the US and Canada in terms of study authorizations. Can you briefly describe those differences?
Yeah, there are some differences with the document itself and when you receive it. The I-20 you actually receive as soon as you get your admission from the university and you're able to prove that funding to the university. That's when you get your I-20. The difference with the study permit is you get the study permit actually when you land in Canada the first time. So as soon as you land and you're at the airport, that's when they actually give you the study permit. So that's one of the key differences. Another difference between the US and Canada is on I-20, you're not authorized to work off campus and you're only authorized to work on campus. That's another difference with Canada. On a Canada study permit, you can actually work off campus anywhere at any job. And another difference is it's not just 20 hours. Sometimes you can get qualified to work for 40 hours in a week. So it's pretty much like doing a full-time job and like a full-time study course. So those are some of the key differences between the US and Canada.
Fantastic. And what documents would a international student need to prepare to get a study permit?
Yeah, to get a study permit, I think it's pretty much the similar process, but there's no interview required. The Canada process is just online, so you submit all your documents online, and they'll give you a decision. And once you get your decision, you'll get this letter called the letter of introduction, and it'll say congratulations, you have been accepted or whatever. And then you have to send your passport to the embassy where they stamp your visa on it. That visa is only going to be like a single entry visa into Canada because that's not the visa that you enter and exit on. Your study permit is actually the document that gives you that entry and exit permissions from the country compared to the US where it's the visa on your passport. So those are some key differences between the US and the Canada process.
Wonderful. And obviously a key similarity is both require proof of funding. So that's where the support letter becomes so important, whether you are US bound or Canada bound. For both of you all, are there any other differences that students should be aware of between the US or Canada?
I think even for the US, I think as he mentioned, they cannot work for the first year. as graduate students, they can work only on campus for the first year. And then from the second year onwards, they can start working outside the campus. There are some students who still work off campus from the first year itself, but students need to keep in mind that these jobs that they get during this time of their study in the US are mainly odd jobs and not full-time employments, or not proper jobs that are qualified under the area of their study. They are not actually allowed to take jobs full-time during the time of their study. So 20 hours is the limit for the US along with their classes, and they cannot extend beyond that. If they're doing that, they're doing it illegally, which is on their own risk. Yeah.
Understood. Let's open it up to all three panelists now, and let's talk about the visa appointment itself. And this is US specific. So you've gathered all of your documents. You're prepared to sit for your visa interview. What are some of the things that a student should know before they attend and go to their visa interview?
I think I can just go first. I mean, before you go to your visa interview, I think the most important thing is to make sure that you have everything that is required of you with you. I mean, like I always say to people that I speak to, I tell them consulars do not reject people because they just don't like you. They need to have a strong basis to reject you, right? So one of the other things that can just cause automatic dismissal is that, you have not brought all the equipment. Either you forgot your I-20 document, you forgot your passport, you forgot. Yeah. So I think before, make sure that, you have everything either listed on the website, every single document that's required, the visa support letters, your admissions letters, etc., your DS-160 application forms. Make sure you have everything with you, because once you have left a document at home, they're just going to say no. I mean, you cannot get in. But just be very meticulous and prepared before you get there. I think that's an important thing that I can just talk about.
Yeah, and something to add there, that the visa officers are looking for evidence that you are capable and qualified to attend your program. So at any point, if you do not have any documents that proves this, or you've forgotten some documents, it's going to be a really hectic task for you. So please make sure that you carry all these documents which are required for your visa interview. They'll also be looking for some evidence that you would return to your home country after finishing your program in the US. So please, when you are attending this interviews, please show strong ties back to your home country. It can be in any form, like your family being here, your family business over here, or you just wanting to come back and do better for your country, something like that. So they are gonna look for that kind of evidence, that they need to have an assurance that you'd come back to your home country post completion of the education. There are some other things that you definitely need to keep in mind is do not be proactively answering the questions which are not asked to you. So if you volunteer and answer questions which are not necessarily asked for you, they would think that you are over answering or giving them information which is not required. So they'll tend to cut you off in between and ask another question and would not be interested to listen to you because you're talking too much. So they'll just try to cut the conversation short. These interviews are barely for a minute or two. You don't spend more than 3 minutes inside a booth of interview. So you have to be very precise, very simple with your facts and straightforward. That is what they are looking for. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if they are asking you some questions, you just say yes and no and nod your head yes and no. No. When you feel a need of explaining something after saying a yes or a no, do it. You also have to judge the person sitting in front of you and how keen they are to listen to you. Because in the first few questions, you will realize whether they are interested to listen to you or not, and whether they want to talk fast and finish it off. So that judgment has to be clear. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to be 100% honest. There is no lying about anything. You cannot turn things around. You cannot turn scenarios around. You have to show your profile and you have to show yourself the way it is, 100% honesty. And one of the common mistakes that students generally make at this interview session is praise US so much. One of my students was asked a question, why are you going to the US? The officer was looking for a simple answer that he's going to study or pursue his education in the US. This dude just said a whole paragraph about how good US is and how qualified the country is, how developed the country is, and how studying in the US is going to help him so much. They don't want to know that. They already know. They are Americans, most probably. So they do not want to know that. So your answers, as I mentioned, has to be straightforward. Know what they're asking. Listen to the questions very carefully. First of all, don't be in a hurry to answer the questions. And if you don't understand a question, you're free to ask them twice. So yeah, those are some points which I also kept in mind when I went for my interview. And I also tell my students to keep that in mind.
I love it. So keep your answers concise. Focus on the reasons that you are studying
Yes.
and want to pursue studies. Demonstrate strong ties back to your home country, whether that's family or something else, but obviously excitement about what you want to pursue and study in the United States or
Yes.
Canada.
Yes.
Yeah, I think those are all very practical pieces of advice. Thank you for sharing those. Ron, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, some things, these are some questions that I kind of remember from my interview. So some of them were, what are your study plans? Why do you decide to study this, whatever you're studying? And why do you want to study abroad? Second one was the choice of schools. They also asked me, which schools did you apply to? Not just the ones you got into, which ones did you apply to and which ones you got rejected from? And if you get into multiple schools, they also try to figure out why did you choose a particular school over another school? The next one
Mm.
was, I think, sometimes they go into your background about academic tests and how your test goes, but most of them don't really go into too much detail about that. The next one is, I think Krutika already mentioned this about your financial status, that we've been saying it all throughout this webinar. That's pretty important. They usually see how you're going to afford your education, not just your education, also like your stay in the US and like, will you be able to leave the US after you're done as well? And they also kind of look into like what your postgraduate plans are going to be. Are you planning to return to your home country? Are you going to stay in the US? For this one, I would say always the correct answer is say you're planning to come back to your home country and try to improve the country. That's a good rule of thumb for that answer. Like I can't give you the exact words that you have to say. You have to kind of figure it out. But the rule of thumb is always say you're going to go back to your home country and try to improve it.
So let's build on that a little bit and also involve Nigel here. So what would you all say counts as a strong tie to a home country?
I think as I mentioned, that family is one of the strongest ties that you can show that you have back your parents and your siblings and your extended family back at home, and you definitely want to come back to them. A lot of students that I see have family businesses back at home. So that actually helps them give an answer that after I've achieved my degree in the US, it will help me come back and enhance my family business and apply my new achieved skills with the degree, something like that. So I think that is one of the very good ways. But I know some scenarios where they don't have any of these and most of their family members are all migrated to the US. So in that cases, like I have a student like that right now. He's applying for a nursing program in the US. So what I advised him to say is there's a shortage of nurses in Kenya as well, as much as there is a shortage of nurses in US as well. I think he can use that as a practical point to say that if after completing my education, I plan to come back to Kenya and serve as a nurse in Kenya because we have shortage of nurses and nurse staffs in Kenya, which will actually make them feel that you are a genuine student. Yeah, because you know your facts, you know your figures that yes, there's no shortage of cybersecurity experts in Kenya. we have so many, but there's definitely a shortage of nurses. So that shows that you have your knowledge, you have general knowledge.
Wonderful. And Ron, anything you would add?
Yeah, I think Kritika mentioned most of them. Family ties. Again, if you already have like a job in your home country, and like if you're only going to the US to study and then return to that same job, that's a very, very strong tie. Please like try to like bring that into focus during that interview. That you actually have a job, you're just going to the US to complete your degree, and when you come back, your job is still waiting for you. That's pretty important. Another one, if you have like a lot of investments in your home country, it doesn't have to be a family business. If you just have any kind of investments, that also really helps.
Got it. So like property or anything of that sort.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
Great. Ron, I love the list of what you shared around what was asked of you in your interview once upon a time. Around study plans, the school that you've chosen, your academic record, your financial documents and proof, and your postgraduate plans. As a student preparing for my interview and I go, what should I be prepared to prove or demonstrate as a part of my application?
So for proving it, it's most likely going to be the financial documents. And they also asked to look at the I-20s that I received from the other universities, which I did not attend. I do not know why, but they asked me that. So make sure you carry I-20s for universities that you're not going to attend as well. And yeah.
Krutika, anything that you would add to that?
I think that you need to carry all the documents, even if you think that it's not relevant, you need to carry those documents. Like some people asked me if they need to carry their old passports. Just carry them, because if you have had visas in those passports, that means you need to show them that sometimes you need to show them that you have had visas. And sometimes they also ask for parents' identification. In Kenya, they suddenly started asking for birth certificates. So that is something that I ask my students now to carry it with them, especially when your brothers or your sisters are sponsoring your education or something like that. They ask for both sponsors and your birth certificates. So that is something which is unique to Kenya, I believe. I don't know if it's happening in some other locations, but yes, that is something they would definitely not definitely, but you would definitely want to keep it with you.
Understood.
Yeah.
Final question for you all here, and then we're gonna open it up to some audience Q&A. Any final pieces of information that a international student should know as they embark on the visa process?
Yeah, so this is going to be a very MPOWER focused answer. If you get a loan from MPOWER and you're using us to get your visa, you don't have to worry about anything from our side. Like your loan can be deferred for a semester and everything should be okay after that. If you're denied the first time, you can reapply for the next semester and get a loan from us. So yeah.
I think to touch up to that, in case if your visa gets denied in the first attempt, you can always make some permanent changes in your profile and you can apply for a second time. So it's not like it's the end game that you've not got your visa for the first time and now you won't get it anytime. No, I have seen students, I have a history of working with a student who had 5 rejections and then she got accepted the 6th time. So yes, it's very much possible. You just need to understand what they're looking for and what they want you to change in your profile, because every time you go to the interview, you would see there are some things that are maybe not correct in your profile, or maybe something that's really bugging them in your profile. It can be anything, even your choice of university or your choice of course. Like you have studied your undergraduate in computer science and suddenly now you want to go do finance and economics and you have no experience in the field of finance or economics. You've been working as an IT manager or whatever, and then you want suddenly develop an interest in accounting and finance. So that is something which may be a bit tricky for the visa officer to understand, that what makes you bring that change in your profile. So I think that is those are the kind of things that you might want to change when you apply for your second time, if you have made that mistake for the first time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Krutika says. That's something that I actually did. I had my undergrad in electrical engineering and I did my master's. I transferred to finance. So they probed a little more into that as well. So yeah, you have to
Yeah.
have a good answer for why you're making these changes in your life.
Yeah.
Indeed. Nigel, do you have anything to add or to share any final pieces of information?
Yeah, ultimately, all the answers and responses that Ron and Krutika mentioned, they're spot on. So I think you should just apply everything that has been mentioned. I think one last thing that I can just talk about is you're not confined to your home country to go and take a visa. So, because I know friends, I'm from Zimbabwe, I have friends who went to Mozambique to get their visa. I have a sibling who went to Namibia to get their visa. So if you find yourself in a difficult situation, like in my home country in Zimbabwe, visa appointments can be difficult to get. You rarely find an appointment that's open. So feel free to reach out to your neighboring countries. I know this may be different in other places of the world, but where I come in Zimbabwe, people go to closest neighboring countries to get their visa from. That is if you have had troubles to, see an appointment in your home country. That's just to help those, who are sweating to say, hey, I cannot see an appointment. What can I do? I'm stuck. So you can even try out at your closest country if it applies in your home, in your nation. So that's just some additional advice that I can give people. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Excellent.
completely second that because I do that. I have done that when Kenya was a bit difficult to get appointments with. I've sent students to Uganda or Tanzania to get their visa interviews done. And similarly, even in India, I'd done that when if Mumbai wasn't available, we'd send them to Hyderabad or we'd send them to Delhi to get their appointments done. So yeah, that's completely okay.
That's great. We have time for a few audience questions, which we'll take. One relates to the timeline and just how long does the visa process take? And their question is they're thinking of applying for their visa in June, and they're concerned about that being potentially late. So how should a person think about when to have their visa interview or apply for a visa in context of when they're accepted to a program?
I'll answer that first. US visa, as I said, is very simple. On the day of the interview itself, you find out whether you're getting your visa or not. There is no waiting period until the day of your interview. So if you booked your date for June in January, so that is the only waiting period you have until the day of your interview. But once you appear for your interview, you will know whether you're getting your visa or not. And generally, these embassies take 5 business days to print your visa and bring it back to you. Yeah. So there is no long there's not a long waiting list for that. A Canadian process is somewhat like that because you apply online and then you wait and then you don't know how long you have to wait. So right now US I think is the simplest form of visas. There is no waiting period, and some rules around now have changed because earlier it was that you can only apply for your visas 120 days prior to your start date, but now they've made it 365 days. So that means even if your program starts next year, you can appear for your interview this year. It hasn't been in motion yet, like fully in motion, but the motion has passed. So yeah, that is also something that you need to consider.
And Ron or Nigel, anything you would add?
No, I think Krutika went through everything. The Canada one is a little more complicated. Canada, the earlier you apply, the better, because like she said, it takes a while. You just apply and you just have to wait. There's nothing that you can do to speed it up. The US is pretty fast. You get the decision same day and you get your document back within 5 days.
Understood. I see some question, Nigel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can just add on those that, I've had friends who applied for their visas in August, before their program starts in August. So I'm just referring to those people that are like, hey, I got my decision very late. Am I late? When is it too late? So just try and apply. If you're in August and you feel like you've been late, that shouldn't mean you should immediately defer. because you're now in August. So you can still go for it and get your appointment. Then yeah, you can still come even after you've applied late.
Yeah, one recommendation there, if you're planning to apply late and you got your admission very late, I think you can also reach out to the consulate and explain the situation to them. They may be able to give you like an emergency visa slot. So you apply for your visa slot, they'll give you one probably like 5 months later, but there's a number that you can call and they may be able to swap it out. I think there's an email or a number that you can do to change these dates if you need an urgent request. So yeah, that's one thing you guys can keep in mind.
Yeah, it's actually under your visa portal where you can request an expedition, but there's also a condition under that you can only expedite your date 30 days prior to your start date. So this is something which the students really make a mistake in, because expedition can be only done once. So if you lose your chance once, you won't get it again. So please make sure if you're applying for an expedited appointment, it has to be within the 30 days window. So even if you apply 31 days prior to your start date, they may end up denying your request. So if your start date is August 15th and they have given you a date of August 30th, for example, you can request an expedited appointment on July 16th onwards. And there is no extra charge. There's no extra charge, or you don't have to pay anything extra for that. It's covered within your visa fee.
That's a great pro tip that you all shared.
Okay.
I see some questions related to visa denials. So what are some common reasons a visa officer might deny a application, even if I have the documents and the funding all lined up?
I think every interview session is different. Every student is different. So there can be one reason why you get denied. Maybe there are several reasons that you may end up getting denied. Maybe you didn't answer the question the way they wanted. Maybe you weren't confident enough, or wrong documents, or most of the times the financial documents are a crisis for a lot of students, because they don't show maybe enough money, or the people sponsoring them are not reliable from their family, like their distant relatives or friends, and maybe people in the US sometimes who are not really immediately related to them. So those are some of the reasons which we have recently seen in Kenya for denial. And apart from that is just how you present yourself. If your documents are in place and you have your answers right, then I don't think you have any reason to get denied. But yeah, those are the only two reasons that can come in picture. Either the documents are underprepared or you are underprepared. So those two things.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we are nearing the end of our time here together. I have a wrap-up question for each of our panelists. What final tips do you have for an aspiring international student?
Okay, I'll go first, I guess.
Okay.
So my tips are pretty much the same if you watched any of the webinars that I've attended. One is always be open to new experiences when you're visiting new countries, not just the US, any new countries. That's one. Second one would be try to interact with like your college professors, and also don't just stay within people in your own class or your own program. Try to interact with people from different programs, because you never know when that kind of network will be also very valuable to you in the future. So try to make friends in like all different programs that you have. And yeah, those are my two pieces of advice usually. One is be open. Second, try to network as much as you can, because both of them are very important. And you may find like some experiences or some connections that you would not have ever expected.
So I think for me, it's really to emphasize on that, grad school is school, I know. I mean, you need to focus on your grades, try to get that 4.0 GPA, etc. But when you come to grad school, I mean, put your career ahead. That is an important thing. Think about your post-graduation prospects. I mean, it's always good to start early. You need to start networking with employers very early. You need to get yourself out there. You need to get yourself known, and that can just by simply doing cold messages on LinkedIn on like managers or working at these big companies that you want to get into, reach out to them, speak to them while you're still a student, not to wait when you are graduating this month. You start looking for employment. By then, the embassy is saying, hey, you don't have work authorization, you need to go back home, etc. But if you prefer to stay, make sure that you prepare yourself ahead of time for the employment industry. And that may mean investing in the skills, investing in the networks, as well as, just, reaching out to people to get to understand how you can get in. And referrals count. And I think I can give specific reference to my friends who are either from Africa or from Zimbabwe. I mean, basically in Zimbabwe, I mean, the culture of referrals is not that strong, right? But I noticed in the US, referrals do work. You can get an employment offer by just, senior managers saying, hey, I spoke to Nigel, he's an incredible guy. We think he has the right skills that we need in this department. So, I mean, just take a look at him. And from there, I mean, you can sign a contract of employment without necessarily having to like go on the website and putting in an application. So these are tips. I mean, I've seen them work for so many people, and I think they'll definitely work for prospective international students.
My final tips would be ready for cultural shock. You are going to see a lot of changes, and some you may accommodate to, some you may not be able to accommodate to. So be ready for that. Be ready for homesickness. It's very common, and it's not something to shy away from. You are a human and you feel, and homesickness is an emotion. So I think go with an open mind that yes, you will miss home and you will see some new things, and you may not find some things like home, and you may not find your traditional food. If that, that is one of the issues that even I had when I went there for a few days at least. So yeah, you'd miss your food and everything, but I think you will enjoy the experience, because learn from that experiences, whatever new cultural shocks you get. Learn from it, pick up the good things and leave out the bad things, is what I always tell my students, and learn from the good things.
I love that. A piece of advice that I would also share is that you are making an incredible investment in yourself by pursuing and attaining a degree from a program in the United States and Canada. So best of luck on that journey. I want to thank each of my panelists today for joining us. Thank you all for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, your advice to international students here today. And for all of you, thank you for joining us. We are going to leave the webinar open for a little bit longer for any last questions to be answered. Otherwise, a recording of this webinar will also be made available, and you will get an email about that in the days to come. Meanwhile, as we shared today, MPOWER is a leading provider of financing and scholarships to international students. We are built by international students for international students. So as you embark on your study abroad and your immigration journey, as Ron mentioned, once you have that admissions letter in hand, that's really the best time to apply for a loan and getting a proof of visa sponsorship and funding from us to embark on this journey ahead. So thank you again for joining us today, and thank you panelists for joining. I hope everyone has a wonderful Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.